Our students in Class 1A have officially been at UA for an entire year, and if they weren't in the middle of an epic war against the villains, we'd probably be able to acknowledge that Class 1A has become Class 2A, or will in just a short while. This means, however, that a new crop of freshmen is arriving at UA High, and we actually get to see some of the new recruits at UA when we're introduced to the pair of Light Thunder and Yuji Fukuyose, two boys who want to become heroes and enter the hero program. Thunder is a young boy with dark skin and dark storm clouds for hair, while his best friend Yuji is an extremely pale boy with bright white hair made of lightning, and the two are said to be quite the lightning and thunder combo when they get to the school. But first they go on a tour of the campus. While there, they run into all sorts of familiar faces like Mei Hatsume and her support department, some business class students we met in season 2, and eventually they're even introduced to Bakugo, Deku, Todoroki, and all the other Class 1A students. But it wouldn't be fair if they couldn't test these new upcoming students, so Aizawa and the other teachers set up a match between Class 1A and some of UA's incoming students like Fuji and Thunder, who take part in the Quirk tag game and get off to a rough start immediately. When the bell rings, we see Thunder getting chased by Froppy, who quickly uses her quirk to get the better of him and take his headband, eliminating him from the battle. And this continues as both 1A and 1B make quick work of all the new students and bring the challenge to an end. But something is wrong. There's still one person left, and the one after them is Bakugo. Annoyed that this is making him look bad, Bakugo screams, "Do you just plan on running away?" With Fuji responding, "That's the plan, Bakugo-senpai," explaining that he witnessed Bakugo's quirk watching the sports festival, and since the rules state that they can only use their quirks 3 times during the exercise, Lightning realizes that if he just keeps running away, Bakugo can't ever reach him in just 3 blasts. But not knowing exactly who he's speaking to, he's surprised when Bakugo uses his quirk in 1 blast and grabs him by the arm. However, Lightning's counter to this is an electric field generated by his body that makes Bakugo numb, allowing the student to get away. At this point, everyone else in the class is really impressed with the boy, with Jiro saying he has a really in-demand quirk, Kaminari commenting on how his quirk totally overlaps with his, and Kirishima joking that he knows exactly how Kaminari feels thanks to Tetsu. But in that moment, everything is decided when Bakugo uses his explosion to knock the headband off of Lightning's body and secure the win for Class 1A. However, despite losing, the student whose name is actually Thunder and not Lightning like we accidentally called him before, actually impressed all of UA's teachers with his performance. At the end of the match, Bakugo walks away and tells the boy that he might not belong in the hero program after all, but as Thunder's friend Fuji gets angry at Bakugo, Thunder really thinks and considers the boy's words and goes all over UA campus as he tries to clear his mind. His entire life, everyone has been hyping him up and telling him that he's going to be an amazing hero or that he should join the hero program. However, this makes him think that he just wants to be a hero because he thinks he can be one, not because that's actually what he wants to do. So to find a way to challenge himself and actually be more like the person he wants to be, Thunder joins the UA debate club, which is part of the business course. And despite the fact that his friend doesn't understand at first, both boys look at UA as they're still happy that it'll be their home next year, as Fuji admits that he's happy to have one less rival next year when they're in Class 1A. Class 1A gets into their gym outfits as Aizawa gets everybody ready for dodgeball. The simple rules are that on the field there are 2 rows on each team side, with only people in the front line being able to use their quirks and being pushed to the back line if they're hit by a ball. Using a randomized process, the class splits into 2 teams, with Team 1 being Bakugo's team, full of 1A's heavy hitters, and Team B being more centered around support, with Deku as their only powerhouse. Zero and everyone plan to center their strategy around defending Deku, but when the first ball goes up, Bakugo's there first and sends an explosion power throw right at Deku's face, knocking him down, but also sending Bakugo out because of the rules. To even the battle though, Momo actually makes a cannon with her quirk and shoots a dodgeball out of it, eliminating Kaminari. After Momo eliminates Kaminari from the Class 1A dodgeball game, bringing the teams even, we see Mineta trying to cheese the whole match by throwing his hair all over Shoto's team, trying to lock them down and make them easy targets, but Shoto lets out a wave of fire that burns it all away. However, Ochako and Tokoyami get caught as Mineta goes plus ultra, and this leads to the 2 of them being eliminated by Zero, who uses his tape to swing the ball wherever it needs to go with pinpoint accuracy. Jiro gets eliminated by Sato as she tries to catch the ball with her ears for some reason, as they pass the ball to Ojiro to try and take down Ida, who's just been running around full speed dodging everything. But Mina comes up with a plan, screaming to Ida, "Ah, wait, Ida, stop," and when he stops to check on her and asks what's the matter, Zero eliminates him, and Ida looks at Mina like a villain as Momo makes an even bigger cannon, and Todoroki says right here, right now, Zero needs to go. After everything that's happened, Mina and Kirishima can only sacrifice themselves for Sero to be of any use, trying to keep their ace in the game. And as Mineta's head starts to bleed, he realizes that this next barrage of hair will probably be his last. So he lets forth a massive swarm of Mineta balls on the opposite team, allowing Sero to eliminate Sato and Shoji. Momo's massive new dodgeball cannon is aimed right for Mineta, who dips low so that the ball Momo is aiming towards his feet would hit his face and get her eliminated, taking them both out together. And this leaves only Sero and Todoroki on the field. Sero says, "This reminds me of the sports festival, and I was useless back then, so let me show you something good this time." But he gets eliminated trying to catch the ball, leading to Hagakure, who's been sneaking around this entire time, blinding Todoroki to finally get the win for her team. During My Hero Academia's first movie, Two Heroes, Deku met David Shield, who was All Might's old partner, as well as his daughter Melissa, who created Deku's full gauntlets, allowing him to use even more of his power safely in the film. Afterwards, as some time goes by, Melissa visits Deku in UA through the Team Up program to do research on hero support items, and Deku, who needs a new suit, links up with Melissa again and gets caught up in a competition between Melissa and Hatsume to prove who between the two of them is the best support item designer. Hatsume makes Deku a suit that lets him dodge anything automatically, but it only lasts 40 seconds. Melissa, however, makes Deku a new suit made out of materials that she created, which looks the same as his usual suit, with new heat and cold resistant properties, as well as insane shock absorption, but the first prototype completely falls apart. After the USJ Center starts to go out of control, Melissa saves Mei, and the two agree to work together on Deku's new suit, combining their knowledge and making a suit built to last through any battle. But in the actual manga and anime for My Hero Academia, she's been supporting Deku with her amazing designs, as we saw in the most recent season. After the battle we saw with Deku versus Shigaraki, Deku's arms were injured, but the damage wasn't catastrophic. He's warned, however, that he can't use 100% of his power still, despite the fact that his body is starting to adapt to One for All. So one of the conditions All Might has for Deku being able to go on his vigilante arc is that they have to wait for a specific item to arrive in the mail. Eventually this support item comes, with All Might saying he had to pull in some favors from overseas to get it there, but when Deku puts it on, we see that the new mid-gauntlet item is exactly what Deku wore in the first movie, with a design that lets Deku go all out at 45% without damaging his arms at all. So Melissa is still supporting Deku, and thanks. In MHA, at the beginning of our story, we watched as Deku's mom took him to a doctor and we found out that he was quirkless, but overseas in America, this story is actually playing out with another character you may be familiar with, Melissa Shield. When she finds out, her dad tries to play it off saying, "Hey, all I can do with my quirk is spin my fingers, so maybe you're better off without a quirk like this." But Melissa says the worst part of this was it felt like the doctor was telling her that she couldn't be a hero, and this only gets worse when she goes back to life and tries to play with other people, but realizes she's always left out in a way because it's not like she can play around using her quirk like they do. Eventually, she goes home and finds her dad, David Shield, asleep at his computer while he works on some designs, and he tells her that he never planned on being a hero, but that doesn't mean that he can't be helpful. At that moment, who barges into the house but All Might himself, as he tells Melissa that she's grown since the last time he saw her when she was a baby, as we see the moment that All Might gets his famous red and blue suit. But outside of the home, a massive tornado heads their way. All Might arrives in the scene as he was going over to her house to pick up his iconic costume from her father, and we watch as he springs into action, first taking care of all the wreckage flying around in the storm and pushing cars and other large debris out of the way. Afterwards, you could probably guess what All Might's solution was to the tornado, and of course it was just to punch it as hard as he could, which does work because he's the strongest hero who ever lived. But as everyone cheers for how amazing his quirk was, Melissa thinks about how her dad was able to help someone so amazing, and it's like for the first time she's actually proud of him and her family. When All Might spots her and she says that he's way cooler because he has such an amazing quirk, All Might tells Melissa to look at his costume and how brilliantly it shines with the rays of justice, even now being spotless after All Might faced a tornado head on. He says this is only possible because of how amazing David Shield is, and there's tons of people like him who support heroes that are absolutely invaluable to making sure people get saved, as All Might tells her that David Shield is his hero, and at that moment it was like All Might was telling Melissa that she could be a hero too, as her passion for creating support items like her father is born. Several students from UA, including Bakugo, are invited to take a class at a special school in Japan for teaching manners, but things go wrong really quickly. First off, we start with Ida and the blonde trio of Bakugo, Kaminari, and Aoyama all making their way to the manners school, with Bakugo somehow somehow not understanding what they want to change about him, and Aoyama saying he's going because he's obsessed with table manners, even though he does look really shady on the color page. When they get to the school after having to do 10 laps around the building randomly, the teachers tell Ida that he's too clean cut and that makes people uncomfortable, forcing Ida to remove his glasses and mess up his hair to give him more of a cool factor, telling him to be more like Bakugo, as Ida begs Bakugo to teach him his menacing look, with Bakugo screaming, "I'm not menacing." This chaos is all because these are actually villains who took over the Manor School, and they're not done messing with our UA students just yet. Ida accidentally goes to villain school with Bakugo, and the teachers realize really quickly that the 1A students think that they're there to take a class on proper manners, so they can get Ida to do practically anything they want if they say it's proper manners. And Bakugo sort of picks up on the fact that something is weird here when the teachers make them all go on a snack run for them, leading to him checking the inside of the school and finding the actual teachers of the Manor School tied up, finally understanding what's happening here and that they've been lied to. But when he tries to call Ida, who's still with the teachers elsewhere, the villains tell Ida that it's rude to have his phone out and he needs to put it on silent, as they have Ida hold what they've stolen, and the three move through the sewers together to escape. Ida doesn't realize it here, but he's pretty much the third villain in this group, helping them nearly get away. But when the villains knock a civilian over and tell Ida to ignore him and hurry up, he calls them out and says manners are for the sake of others and their teachings are wrong, just in time for Bakugo and the others to show up so Ida can defeat the villain teachers, as the 1A students get reprimanded for going to the wrong building. Deku and Bakugo couldn't be more different sometimes, but during some special training when Class 1A is being taught how to use disguises, we see Midnight asking the class to pretend to be another one of their classmates, and at this time Deku ends up having to pretend that he's Bakugo, leading to Deku wearing Bakugo's full hero costume as he walks up to the class and they ask him to do an impression, not realizing that behind them stands a bloodlusted Bakugo who gives off an aura that screams, "Be careful." Bakugo gets angry at Deku's impression of him, but when it's Ida's turn to choose a person to disguise himself as, he chooses Deku, and even though he wears the costume, he doesn't quite fit as a passable Deku, for some reason getting Bakugo really angry as he fixes Ida's wig and paints on Deku's trademark freckles, allowing Ida to finally pass the disguise test. But when it comes time for Bakugo to dress up as Ida, he throws a fit and absolutely refuses. During the day of Class 1A's unexpected disguise training, we saw Deku switching costumes with Bakugo and actually getting his headpiece snatched away from a bird. And at this time, Deku was actually attacked by a young boy who screamed out, "You're Bakugo, right?" before hitting Deku with a small series of explosions using his quirk. Deku saves the young boy from a falling steel beam, and the two have a conversation where Deku finds out that this young boy who thinks that he's Bakugo saw Bakugo during the sports festival and was inspired to be a hero just like him. So he spends all of his time at an elite gym for training future heroes and has all the confidence in the world that he'll be #1 someday. But the people at the gym keep telling him that his quirk is too similar to Bakugo's. Deku gives the kid good advice, helping him work it out with the people in the gym, and realizes that the boy is a huge All Might fan. And afterwards, the boy visits UA to thank Bakugo for helping him work everything out, but when he meets the real Bakugo and sees his scary aura, the boy runs off, probably as confused as can be. It's scary movie night on the Class 1A campus, as in the UA dorms, we see Deku and his friends loading up a DVD. First they see static, but as it begins to clear, they see flashing images of a well in a dark forest as a single lit wax candle climbs from out the well. Suddenly, a man with a sunken face creeps towards the screen quickly and then slowly at times, but Deku, watching the tape, realizes it's just All Might. This cursed tape was sent to 1A by 1B, and they really worry for a while if they're gonna die in 7 days, like in The Ring. However, this starts off a competition between Class 1A and 1B to prove which class can be the scariest. Eventually, Kaminari, Kirishima, Deku, and Mina all get scared by a mysterious head wrapped in a blanket on the ground of the forest that freaks them all out. But after calling to Aizawa to be the dad who gets rid of ghosts in the closet, Aizawa arrives and realizes that the entire time this was just a cat that he kept warm earlier in the day with his blanket, telling the students to go study, proving that Aizawa is actually the scariest at UA. After watching a cursed tape sent to him by 1B, Deku and our students take part in a jump scare competition with members of Class 1B, and it's all about using their quirks to raise the other team's heart rates and eliminate them. It's here where we find out just how scary Class 1B is, as Manga makes some scary noises in the forest, and Kurohiro appears out of the darkness, grabbing Deku's leg, which gives them a point, as Tokage splits her body up and appears behind Jiro in pieces, scaring her completely out of the competition for 3 points. Kaminari and Mina both get nearly eliminated after they find a strange bag of an eye-looking backing out of it, and this gives 1B a whopping 10-point lead. But Deku comes up with a plan to use all of their quirks together. So Mina comes stumbling out of the forest like a rotting and decaying zombie with floating balls of fire around her thanks to Mineta, Deku, and Todoroki. But Monoma just laughs at their attempt, saying to prepare for this they've all been watching classic horror movies, and with their strongest attempt now failed, Class 1A actually loses to Class 1B in the superhero scare-off. Mineta finally had his time to shine when a dog wandered into UA's dorms, and seeing how much attention from the girls it was getting, Mineta dressed up in a tiny dog costume to try and break into the girls' dorm rooms. However, a switch-up happens when Mineta accidentally gets sent away to a new home in the dog's place. While there, he realizes that these are actually villains who steal people's dogs and sell them for top dollar. But the leader of this operation is a hot villain who thinks Mineta is just a really smart dog that knows tricks, and she spoils him while keeping Mineta by her side. Eventually, Class 1A realizes the situation, and paired with that one dog detective from the anime, they go and arrest the group of villains and free the dogs, while Mineta at the last moment breaks out of his disguise and saves the main villain as she falls off of a cliff using his hair, leaving her behind as he cries blood and says it's tough being a hero who the ladies love. The first time Deku went on a mission of Hawks, Hawks relied on Deku's power to save the day. On a team-up mission between Hawks, Deku, and Bakugo, the trio enters through the back of a TV company building to catch a group of villains known for completing their crimes with extreme speed. So on Endeavor's recommendation, Hawks brings in Deku and Bakugo, who stay behind in the main room while he defeats all of the villains' friends nearby, as Deku, who's gone full stealth mode, gets seen by the villain who disappears in front of Deku and nearly grabs him. Bakugo saves Deku with a well-placed explosion, and the two get cornered by the villain Spider Quirk, which allowed him to wrap them in webs. But at that moment, Hawks returns and we find out that this has all been a trap, which allows the two to St. Louis smash and howitzer impact the villain, and that's exactly what Hawks needed because he didn't have the power to take this villain down. Afterwards, Hawks thanks the two by taking them to dinner at a place he only brings people that he likes. Monoma has a funny hatred for anything to do with Class 1A, after Class 1B was embarrassed by them during the sports festival, but the class actually wins him over finally. As the team-up program continues to progress, on an off night at the UA dorms, Monoma comes up with a 5-page presentation on why Class 1B has surpassed Class 1A, but when he shows it to Ida and the others, Ida spots that the first word on each sentence of page 1 spells out scared of Class 1B and help me. So Ida, Deku, and the rest of the class secretly work together to butter Monoma up and get the info of what's really going on out of him. He doesn't trust Deku's niceness immediately, but over the night, Monoma bonds with the class, having a sparring match of Kirishima, drinking tea with Momo, eating cake made by Sato, and even playing with Koda's rabbits. This niceness breaks Monoma, who finally comes to love the class, but when he realizes that they thought he was being abused, he goes right back to his usual hilarious ways. During the winter before the Endeavor training arc, Deku and Bakugo team up on a mission with Mount Lady and Kamui Woods to visit a small village on the outskirts of Japan that heroes almost never go to for a special mission. On this mission, they meet everyone in town who excitedly rush to see the fancy heroes for themselves, and after meeting the village priestess Kodama, whose quirk allows her to heal plants, they learn that the village worships a secret tree, which is sort of like their symbol of peace, but a series of landslides lately has been putting them and their tree in danger. The group plants trees together to try to make the countryside firm via a tangled network of tree roots, but the night that they arrive, a massive landslide hits the village, with Kamui Woods using his quirk to save the villagers as they cross a rickety bridge, as Deku and Mount Lady work together to save the priestess and her tree, and Bakugo catches a chicken that escaped the village. Good job, Bakugo. Many people became fans of Roddy's Soul from My Hero Academia World Heroes mission, but did you know he actually visits Deku after the events of the movie are all wrapped up? At UA, Deku tells All Might about how a friend from overseas is going to be visiting today after winning a trip to Japan. And when Deku heads to the location, he sees Roddy and his two siblings, Roro and Lala, who've never seen such a big city before. Deku recommends a bunch of locations centered around pro heroes, but when that doesn't cut it, he gets the help of Kirishima, Jiro, and Shoji to show the group around. As time goes on, we see Roddy hiding how truly happy he is to be here as the group takes pictures, does a little shopping, and even visits an airfield specifically made for aviation-based heroes who fly their own planes into battle. By the end, we see Roddy's siblings buying him a new pair of goggles to support his pilot dreams, and after saying goodbye to Deku once more, Roddy tells Deku that one day soon, they'll be able to hang out whenever, when Roddy becomes a pilot. Shinso officially joined the hero program in season 5, but which class did he end up joining? After the events of the joint training arc, we see Monoma visiting 1A's hall in the UA dorms and showing off how 1B has already prepared a room for Shinso with a custom soundproof booth for him to test his quirk in. But not trying to lose to Monoma, Deku, Ida, and Sero go to the mall to try and get what they need for their extra spare room to prove to Shinso that he should join class 1A. When they get there, they realize that Shinso's already at the mall, and as Shinso shops for Aizawa, he meets a guy who works there with a quirk that would be great for shoplifting, making him harder to employ, but saying it makes him work even harder to prove himself. And when Deku realizes that a rare piece of All Might memorabilia has been stolen from the mall, the four boys link up and track down the thieves using their quirks to solve the situation quickly, letting the hard-working mall man get the credit for stopping the thief as they bring Shinso back to the dorms and show him his own amazing room covered in Gonriki kittens. He went to join class 1B. Oshinoko is a really popular anime and manga right now, but did you know the mangaka of the series is actually a massive fan of My Hero, which is likely why we got a chapter focused all around an idol concert, likely as a show of support for a manga that Horikoshi himself has recommended. On this mission, we see Kinoko and other class 1B students at an idol show when Mirko shows up in her plain clothes, as it's revealed that they're here for an undercover investigation into why idols have been having various incidents that have made them suspend their shows early, with Mirko theorizing that someone is using their quirks in the idols to make them say and do things that make them less popular for some reason. To truly get into disguise, the girls all put on idol costumes, and Mirko dons her school costume that she wore back in My Hero Academia Vigilantes from her younger days, as the investigation begins with the rabbit hero in the lead. As Mirko joins several of our UA girls on an undercover mission to a Oshinoko concert, she dons her vigilante costume that she wore in a story we'll be telling soon. However, everyone else dresses as idols, as Mirko tells them that that's not her style since she'd always rather fight, and Kendo tells Mirko that she lives to fight, so the two do a quick spar in the middle of this secret mission, which causes Mirko to realize that they probably shouldn't be doing this, as she scares the crowd away by threatening to fight them too. Mirko then goes back to fighting Kendo in the crowd, as Kinoko and Ponygirl actually do the work of interviewing several people in the crowd as part of their investigation. But Kinoko realizes that no one is really responding to her with the way that she's dressed, so she customizes her outfit and puts mushrooms in her hair, which instantly gets her discovered by a bunch of fans in the crowd. Now the issue is that Mushroom Girl is getting a little too popular, as it takes the attention of practically everyone in the building who rush to become her fans and give her money, and that causes all of the idols working there to basically band together and show their true colors. But in that chaos, a villain finally strikes as he taps someone on the shoulder and activates his quirk. In MHA on a dark night at UA High, we see as Deku hangs out on his own trying to figure out his powers when Tokoyami comes up to him, letting him know that they have a mission together in the morning, as he's received an ominous note calling Tokoyami, Deku, and a class 1B student the Chosen Ones, and telling them to meet the writer in the Abyss on the eve of the full moon. Tokoyami smiles because the class 1B student he's paired up this time is Kurohito, who lives in the darkness, and get your seatbelts ready because things are about to get edgy. On the day of the mission, Deku walks behind the brothers in darkness, who talk back and forth about how their fates are intertwined as those who commune with the Abyss, until eventually our three heroes reach a door covered in magic runes and unholy symbols before the gate bursts open in front of them, revealing a shocking secret inside. In the room, they see a man with white hair and total isekai villain vibes, as his room looks like a shrine to everything occult. This is the headquarters of the edgelord hero, Odd-Eye, and he welcomes the heroes, but Tokoyami and Kurohiro immediately feel like they just walked right into the heart of darkness, as this hero prepares a test to see who really deserves the Dark One's blessing. When Deku and Tokoyami meet the #1 edgiest hero in Japan, they enter his lair and they enter his lair as Odd-Eye speaks to the youths, telling them that they wish to become icons known as heroes. However, in its very nature, a hero is one who was born to cast themselves into the yawning abyss to garner praise from the teeming masses and inspire dread among villains. Deku looks on really confused as Tokoyami and Kurohito are more locked into this conversation than they've ever been to anything else in life. However, he challenges these three young heroes to conquer their truths and be tested, as he rushes down on Deku and grabs him by the head, since Deku seems to be the only one who has no idea what this guy is talking about. As Odd-Eye grips Deku's head, the boy says All Might and him are the coolest heroes he can imagine, as we see memories of him learning how to draw All Might. This is the test that Odd-Eyes has for them, making them see their inner darkness, their most embarrassing thoughts. As Deku says if he could be All Might's sidekick, he would be named Mighty Boy or Might Jr., and on the sidelines, Tokoyami watches in horror because his turn is coming up. In My Hero Academia team-up mission, when Deku embarrasses himself after the edgelord hero, after Odd Eyes rids Deku of his inner darkness, he reaches towards Kurohiro, who believes he's above such a quirk. However, when it's revealed in front of everyone that Kurohiro has a massive crush on the mushroom girl from class 1B, this causes our hero cloaked in darkness to begin blushing, diminishing the very shadows at the core of his being as everyone laughs. Finally, our edgelord hero rushes towards Tokoyami, who simply allows him to approach. However, as the room gets quiet for a moment, Odd Eyes wonders why his quirk isn't working, as Tokoyami says, "Know this, there is no dark past that could possibly mortify me," causing Odd Eyes to shudder as he smiles and rips off his eye patch, telling Tokoyami that he is a true Dark One who deserves to receive this hero's full blessing. So as his newly revealed eye begins to glow, the room grows dark as a magic circle appears on his glove as he says, "Behold your abyss," and Dark Shadow begins to go rampant. In My Hero Academia, Horikoshi has done a really good job of not letting there be any official canon couples in Class 1A, and despite the fact that it's obvious some characters are going to end up together like Deku and Ochako, another couple became extremely obvious in the official team-up mission spin-off. In this manga, we see a mission between Ojiro and Toru as they're sent away to Oku Island, where they visit Terrakoya Hero School, and Ojiro instantly gets caught in a net trap the second he sets foot on campus. This is because this is actually a pretty wild island, and that's exactly why they're there, as in the school, which is honestly styled way more like a dojo, we see a huge classroom full of little students, just like when Todoroki and Bakugo had to do their remedial training, and the vibe is definitely the same here, as their quirks are all really excellent, but this has led to behavioral problems in the classroom that our two UA heroes are here to find the solution of, but on their way, they may find more than that. After arriving on Oku Island to teach some brats a lesson, Ojiro manages to escape from the net trap that he was caught in before, and the teacher apologizes, but quickly our 1A students get to work trying to corral this group of rampaging quirk users, with Ojiro yelling, "I'm Ojiro and my name is Tailman. Just like you guys, I'm hoping to be a hero." For a second, the students seem excited to talk to him as they rush and ask him what his quirk is, but when Ojiro points at his tail and says, "Ah, it's that," the room gets really quiet as you can feel all the respect they had for him walk out the door. Instead of listening to him, they start discussing all sorts of rumors about UA, like how they fuse quirks there to make stronger ones, and there's genetic experiments going on. But when Ojiro tries to give them proper advice on how to become a hero, they start getting mean, telling him that he's super plain and doesn't have anything that makes a cool hero. But as they start putting Ojiro down, a massive bright light shines in the room as Toru reveals that she's been standing there the whole time, and one of the boys, being really impressed with her, tells her about a special treasure hidden on the island that we're gonna go and get. In My Hero Academia, Kaminari lucks out when he gets sent on a team-up mission with Momo and Mei Hatsume, as they get sent to the agency of a martial arts hero named Black Belt. Kaminari, who's always online, says that he's never heard of this hero, so he must be new, but Momo says that actually he's been around for 10 years, it just seems like he's pretty unknown. They get there and realize that this hero requested them because he wants some sort of support item invented, because he wants to make a big splash and gain popularity, something that he's been unable to do because he says his quirk is boring. When they ask him why, he does a really cringe kick against a training dummy, but tells them that usually he defeats villains with a single chop to the neck because his quirk Fast Fist lets him strike extremely fast, but this also means to most people and even cameras it seems like he hasn't done anything. It's very much a Saitama-like problem to have, but as Kaminari tells the guy that he's too awesome for them to appreciate, Mei Hatsume gets an amazing idea as this story about an undiscovered veteran continues. In MHA, on a warm summer day, we watch as Kirishima, Todoroki, and Bakugo arrive at a theme park, and the reason that they're there is because today they actually have a special mission where they'll be paired with a student from Shiketsu to get the job done. As Cammy walks up and says to herself that she's happy to see that hot and cold snack from last time, Kirishima properly or really improperly introduces himself, causing Cammy to think of Inasa since the two are pretty similar. As she talks about how nice it is that they got sent to future theme park, even if it is for a mission, they meet with the CEO of the park who looks like a nice little elf, and he takes them on a tour around the place showing how empty it's been, so he wants him to put on a play to drum up business. But as it comes near the time for the play to begin, we see as Bakugo tries to argue with Cammy about how he should go in the middle of the group since the strongest is obviously the leader. But Cammy puts her finger on her lips and makes Bakugo pretty flustered as she tells him that she should go in the middle because she's older and more experienced, and says oof and calls him selfish when he tries to keep arguing. It's really crazy how easily she's able to handle him, and next we'll talk about how this odd pair continue to get along. In MHA, on a cold winter morning, our students wake up excited because today is a very important day they've been waiting for a long time, and that would be the National Hero Corps Ski Jump Tournament, which they've been eagerly awaiting all year. Each year, hero classes from schools all over the country enter 3 of their best students to see which team will take home the gold. And this year, as the event is led by President Mike, we learn the rules, like how using quirks is completely okay, but this means that people won't just be judged on how far they go, but how elegant or acrobatic they are when they do. Naturally, if there's a team that stands recipients for both of these things, it would be Deku, Kirishima, and Bakugo, who are chosen as UA's finest, and of course this pisses Bakugo off, who yells on the side of the mountain while both Deku and Red Riot get super hyped for their performance. Thankfully for Bakugo, they aren't just there for the tournament and actually have been given information that a group of villains is going to try to ruin the event while they're there. So as Kirishima and Deku take their ski routine seriously, Bakugo lurks on the prowl, waiting for the first signs of any villain on this cold, desolate mountainside.